All right, here we go again. So, like, this is what I say to the appointees. If you're a part of that stuff, you don't have to remain part of it. Whoever you were before you were appointed and whatever got you there, even if it's something you were kind of part of it, you probably shouldn't have been part of, just jettison it and get rid of that mechanism of extortion. And get rid of that mechanism of corrupt payment. You don't have to be subservient to that machine. Because again, it's probably spies somewhere. And Trump's good at that. He'll play them. Again, if you don't know what went on during the election, I can't reveal everything, but we were playing them. Right. I've explained it over the years. I don't know if you all picked up on it. Right. It was a spy operation. We actually won by a counter spy operation. I explained it before. Right. During the first Trump presidency. So I tell you, just ignore me. And I'm probably not the only one that did it. So there's Democrats that really don't hate Trump being in there. You hear Carville, right? Carville was part of it. He knows what's up. I mean, I don't know if he likes Trump or not, but right. He just knew something had to change. Right. He knew Biden was deep state. Carville's not really deep state. He's worked probably around it. That's why you hear him talking shit about Biden. Well, again, Zuckerberg had to do certain things. I agree to that to stay alive. Right. So again, it's not kissing the ring. It's okay. Now we're going to get out of this. Let's get forward of all this bullshit. So again, we can't become it. Again, what I'm saying is create free enterprise, because that's not what was going on. Is not free enterprise. It's a lockout system. You get, you don't get. So if you actually created the free enterprise system, if you freed up all of the the capitalism, then it would work. Actually, if you do kiss the ring, it won't work. And again, that creates friction. There's no need for it. Again, you're also in a posture where they're lulling you into a false sense of security. They want you to feel powerful. They want you to step on over the line. So you have to monitor behavior. So again, they did that to Elon Musk already. So again, we need to be cognizant of these things. No, Elon doesn't get a pass. Elon has to be checked out. Again, Trump doesn't have to check him out if he doesn't want to. There are plenty of people in the world that aren't going to. Again, Europe signaled that their machine is going to go after him, and their machine includes their spies. So again, there's, you can't just do what you want, because you'll take away from the other missions. This is what happened last time, and then Trump ended up in that 3%ers and all that, and somebody didn't take care of the president. It's the same thing I say about Oliver North. Oliver North did not take care of Ronald Reagan. He made a mess. They did the same thing to Trump. Made a mess. If we just focused on the mission and got away from the stupid BS of Antifa versus this and that, and trying to call, again, it's a sin to call that a prayer meeting, that they're trying to have a prayer meeting. They weren't trying to have a prayer. It's just a cover story for a gang. Again, Chansley should be receiving messaging in his mind that, go easy. If it's legal for you to buy guns, you're allowed to buy guns, but go easy. Just, get away from, some of that BS. They were lawfully arrested. Again, I'm going to be the person that spoils your party. They were lawfully arrested. They committed crimes, and that's that. If you win and you pardon them, that's fine. Obviously, Biden's pardoning other people. It's been the game for decades to a certain degree. The question is whether this thing will actually make it somewhere. I mean, stay the course. Well, because they could actually sue the entire government. They could sue Biden and Trump administrations and say, these are out of control and there's an issue with it. Now, the court may say, well, the law is clear and they get the pardon. So what I'm also saying, that's part of being lulled into a false sense of security. Like, we'll just pardon them. Well, at a certain point, you may not be able to, so be careful. Especially because you're not being sued. See the scam? You're not being sued because they don't want you to think about it. They want you to continue on thinking that you can be pardoned. And then, go in front of the court and say, well, this looks like it's just over the line. So, again, you're being set up, and I know it. So just go easy with all of it. Again, they have the reversal on. I'm not sure what the full effect of it is, but essentially, when I speak, it looks like I'm speaking about myself. So that's a metaphysic. Well, it actually is it's a metaphysical fraud. So, like, they get our credit and we get their credit. So we need to fix that. The inflammation is naturally decreasing, so the COVID actually did drive it up a little. So that's pretty cool. But I still have a lot of disability that'll probably, some will remain, but that I need to work through with. Again, it never had to get to this. It's not just simple aging. They blocked all of my treatment and wellness. Right? I mean, I'm just one person. And you were talking about decades of operation and millions of dollars spent. I mean, it's serious. It's one of that type of thing is one of the largest violations of law by government and private sector in the history of the United States. It's Project Artichoke, but it's much more refined. Yeah, Marshall Service engages in Project Artichoke. Some of them are murderers, sex traffickers, narcotic smugglers. It's just, if you're in with somebody, they, this is the scam that, you don't investigate anybody that's part of the thing. That's where it starts. But of course, they're already into something like sex trafficking or narcotics distribution when they created that. So you have to really fix that machine. And you're not going to reign for 40 million years. It's a given, okay? Don't let them make you think that. They're already sowing the seeds of discontent, which is what Trump did. Right. Biden did it when he won, and Trump actually did it in 2000. If you think about it, Trump did it in 2016 also. He sowed the seeds of discontent and won. Right. Biden sowed the seeds of discontent and won. Now, did he win by that number? Yes, no, indifferent. He would have won. The numbers were just too large to say it was all fraud. Now, Putin says it because he's trying to send messages. He's trying to telegraph something. So the State Department needs to move on that. Well, I know Trump wants to take a non-interference. I mean, he already ordered Kellogg to do it. And it may be that Kellogg said, hey, they're not cooperating. 100%. Well, you don't see any real movement. We need to see movement. We need to, and to get that movement, Mr. Rubio and Mr. Kellogg need to, go public with something, right, and start that movement. And like I said, you want to have religious ceremony with it. They're both Orthodox people. You can bring the Jews in also. I think everybody's seeking peace there to a certain degree, but they just can't get past that initial push. You don't have to negotiate everything to get to a ceasefire and stay on that ceasefire. But what you do is you just keep meeting. You just keep meeting. You keep thinking about it. Again, meditating on it. And again, Mr. Putin, he can reiterate the idea of mutual respect and honoring each other's sovereignty and honoring each other's, I guess in some cases, manhood. You try to like spies will try to neuter somebody, try to cuck someone. Again, that's where we lost in South Korea. You tried to cuck Leader Kim, and he still holds a grudge. Thank you, Larry. So let's get those people out there. I mean, just get it done. There is something. Again, North Koreans have some sort of power. I don't get what it is, but completely. But I'm affiliated somehow inside with them, right? And I'm affiliated with Koreans in general. My ex-wife was Korean, right? And I was in Korea. So once I enter into a country, I expand into that country metaphysically. I was asleep, so I didn't know any of it. But that's part of it. I have a connection to Leader Kim's sister. I don't know what it is for sure. It's not any long, drawn-out thing, but every once in a while in passing, something is, inferred or said in the mind. I respect them, and I think, at least internally, they respect me. I'm not going to North Korea, no. That's not going to happen. And that actually might be the opening for our connection, is that CIA hates me enough that they want me to do something stupid like go to North Korea. So they open that connection, but in that connection, we shared a few words about certain things. Again, I always tell somebody like that, I don't expect you to understand me, and I don't expect myself to understand you. We had two different worlds, not even just North Korea and the United States growing up and raised in another community. They were wealthy their whole life. I'm poor, that kind of thing. Right. Or not necessarily poor, but, nothing above kind of middle class. Right. Thank you, Larry. I was on my way to upper middle class, but they killed it. They killed it on purpose. I don't know how many people in the neighborhood I moved into were hired. I can't tell you that, because I wasn't generally a paranoid person. I was an unknowing person. And they were setting my wife up. She was the first target. And that's generally the MO. They try to take the wife out, the mother out, the brother out. So when they hit the target, they can manipulate the other family members. And this has gone on for decades. This isn't something new. I believe it was around in the 50s and 60s also. So Project Artichoke was created, but what was it really created for? They're crooks. If you go back to why did they name it Project Artichoke? If you're in the DEA today and somebody is a organized crime member, the Artichoke King, would you name one of your assignments Project Artichoke? Like, again, maybe you would because you're going after the Artichoke King, but the idea is they named it after a crook. It's named after a crook, a gang boss. They're obviously crooks. So what they tell you they were using it for may not have been what they wanted. They want to take over the United States, own it, and own all the money. That's what it was for. Maybe even take over the world. Again, remember one of the people that was in MK Ultra, that CIA guy, drugged. There's no doubt that Wayne Ritchie, Deputy U.S. Marshal, was drugged by that guy. No doubt. The court even telegraphed. They wouldn't say it. They said, if in fact you were drugged, you paid the highest price for national security or this nation. And he was drugged. The judge wouldn't have said that. The judge can't rule against the CIA. He knows he'd be gone in a day. Right. Again, that world has to disappear. Agreed. And Mr. Ratcliffe, again, we don't want people to destroy national security, but we don't want national security to destroy everything either. Well, when you killed me, you destroyed everything. I'm not the only one that's gone. I mean, Bob's gone. There's other people gone. Well, we weren't allowed in the club. Right. I wouldn't want to be corrupt. I wouldn't spend my life being a criminal anyway. So what they do is they indoctrinate everybody around you. And when people grow cold to you, it's because they've been changed in the mind. So what they do is they create negative experience, and all that negative experience, it's transferred into you. Right? Like I said, Rick Guzman for some reason held out. I don't know who he was in his later years in government after I left, but Rick Guzman was a secret soldier against the deep state. And again, I spoke with people when I was in the government, but I didn't know what it was about. People in I brought it up before, northern Oklahoma, Tulsa office. I think it was northern Oklahoma. I was on assignment with them, and they talk about fighting the deep state is what they were talking about. Back then, it kind of gave me false hope, I guess. But again, I guess that was their office, and they explained it as it being their office, how they were fighting the deep state. No, after they took out Luna, Rick Guzman came out. Right. And he changed some things. And like I said, we would walk past each other, he'd say something, and then he'd keep walking. And no, he wasn't. Again, what happened to me was a crime. Everybody knows, and this is why they keep attacking me, that they committed felony crimes against me during that time period. And I mean, it was more than a decade. Or about a decade. Yeah, more than a decade. So they're not doing it because I'm a criminal. They're doing it because they're criminals. And they want to take out anybody that knows what they did. So Guzman wasn't doing anything illegal. He was simply, again, some of it was just, scuttlebutt in the investigation. But when he said the marshal sold you out, that was literal. Marshall made merchandise. I mean, he wanted to be famous. And that's how he got to that position to begin with. And that's why the union guy wasn't selected. The Baltimore County or Baltimore City. He was Baltimore County union guy. Police union. Because he would reverse that effect. He'd fight the deep state. But again, Jonathan Luna may be alive if he became the marshal. See? They chose evil. For sick people, man. So after Jonathan Luna gets killed, I'm in a courthouse. And again, this is where it's starting to get weird because they're connecting to me. and it wasn't anyone in the courthouse. I walked to I was like at where it was just so weird. I walked to where, again, they were like, back then we had telephone booths in the courthouse. So when I'd go past the telephone booth, they'd start ringing it. This is the kind of things they were doing. But I'm by I may have been the 6th floor, I can't remember where, but I was by the elevator lobby. And I walked to the window there to look out. And I mean, it's obvious the person wanted me to see them. So they connected to me. And it was a blonde woman. And she walks like into the light in the window so I could see her. And she's looking at me. And she's in a building light. So we're being observed by whoever that was. And she just looks at me and I look at her and... Well, if you actually knew me and knew what was happening and how I was handling it, I was a wonderful person. But again, if they say kill him, they kill him. They kill me. You understand that? Right. So there's a lot of awakening as far as how dirty everything was back then. Well, somebody like me, again, what I was to be saved at least to have a good life and go off into this private sector and then take care of business there. Again, like I do right now, but maybe not as open. Again, I used to send emails. But because there was a group of people that had committed felony crimes against me, right, again, the idea that they were going to have Jonathan Luna hearings and what happened there in the House. Because everybody did that, they came and attacked my life and drugged me. And that thing in Omaha happened. And I didn't even know anything was going on. You know what? If they hadn't done that to me, my life would have moved in a direction where I never would have known anything. Again, they're the loose ends. They're not letting sleepy dogs lie. And some of them are psychotic. Once they want to kill you, they want to kill you. Again, we're talking about murder. Now, what they're going to do is they're going to try to sell that to Trump and his people. Well, this is valuable to us. And I'm sure Trump uses some operators. But we need to get away from this. Well, God's not going to let you mock God. You're not going to claim God and you're going to use deep state for your own use. So again, I'm joking about Breitbart using my stuff. And they may have before. Again, God may have said that so they kind of freak out a little bit. Because somebody's moving my stuff around and probably getting rich doing it. We don't want to emasculate, I guess it's a bad term, I guess, but you get the picture. Emasculate CIA, but we don't want them destroying everything and owning everything either. Again, they had damaged me enough with the operation of the Marshal Service, it took a time to recover, and when I do recover, they come back and re-injure. No, the Marshal Service actually owed me millions, but again, there was a kind of an agreement. Agree to disagree, move on, we'll move on. But they never did. Jim's wife, Peggy, was in communication with somebody who was part of the operators. And she was manipulating Jim. My mother was totally on board with what I was saying. She fought the deep state. And she even told me when they feared her in Naples and she wouldn't do what she needed to do to make her life and my life better, that she couldn't do it anymore. She didn't say, I can't fight the deep state, but that was the inference. Oh my God. They had tortured her enough that she gave up. And she actually gave up before that, on and off. Because when she met me at Jim's, she was all ready to fight the deep state. There was enough coding of veiled language that she knew what was up. And in a moment, in Naples, he talks directly about what they did to me. She didn't understand that I was okay with speaking out loud, talking in my room, speaking to spirits. Again, she was limited in her knowledge of metaphysics, Judaism, and what was actually happening. Or thinking out loud. Oh, he was like, what they did, well, only part of it, Mom. You don't get how this works. Well, I generally only was doing it certain places. But again, if I came out, that means I was already being killed. Because speaking is the best defense. Free speech is the best defense. So again, Ratcliffe, Pam Bondi, and Cash have to find people they can trust. They may have already, I don't know, but you have to be careful because they could be actually the deep state. Essentially what they're doing is they're moving spycraft for personal use. And that includes killing people. And killing people means forcing to suicide also. Now, if you investigate people that did this to me, you're going to find everybody if you do it right. You're bringing a variety of people. The spy masters are moving and creating other organizations and other people to do it to me. That's how spycraft murder works. In fact, they wanted physical murder. And that person, either gets off the hook because they hide all the evidence, or, infer to their connection in the police department, that person doesn't get investigated. Or they go down for it, it doesn't matter. So when we see that organization in Santa Fe, New Mexico, the Ghost, that was hunting pedophiles, that was created by spy masters. And they were being groomed to kill me if they could. Physically, if they could. Could have been created by Valerie Plame. If you wanted me to support you, then you shouldn't have done that. And you should actually elevate my life. I think anytime along the way, you could have protected me from what was happening and then get my support. Now, here's another trick to this stuff on the border. We have, did the volume go up? Yeah, well, All right, here we go again. Hopefully this thing was working for what I was said, but here's, let me try to remember what I was going to say. Darn it. My microphone went crazy. Um, okay, yeah. So what happens is we have like the National Training Center, and it's an expensive deployment. We deploy all the way to California from wherever you are in the country, and you go through some war games. But now you have the border. And you have actually a little more realism. There's nothing that says that you can't take some of that funding, training funding, and use it for the deployments and actually deploy. Like when the surges hit, you could rotate units in for a month as a training exercise. So you augment with who you have there. Usually they send, I think, a brigade level unit. No, it's not the same thing, but in a certain way, it's better training. And again, you could just add another rotation if you wanted to. You want to keep the California rotation. So again, treat it also as a training exercise. A real, kind of close to the real world. It is a real world operation. So you can schedule units to move in for a month, especially if you're just saying, hey, let's just move, a little less than we usually move. I don't know what you want to do. Bodies are important. You might have enough vehicles where you can augment. Again, in Desert Storm, we used augmentation. We received 3 or 4 engineers in our platoon. I think that was the number, from a unit in Germany. So you have your people in place, you rotate in some units that don't bring any equipment other than their own gear. That doesn't cost that much money. Then you get additional bodies during the surge. Now you might need additional equipment. Again, it's very important to get some of that military intelligence hardware in there. Again, you have to, because it's a peacetime mission, you have to differentiate, and you got to go over rules of engagement and all sorts of things, and all sorts of rules of engagement, use of force, interview, who do you interview, who you don't interview. Military intelligence people have certain skills, and they can interview and successfully interview and analyze it. Again, you can use them as analysts. They don't have to be the interviewer. They can be present at the interview. Again, things we've used in other places. Again, I'm not anti-intelligence. I'm not anti-spycraft. I'm anti what it's become. A cesspool, an orgy, a hole in the ground, a gaping wound. Thank you, sir. Well, again, we have military intelligence people in the Border Patrol. I realize that. Spent some time in the military, then became Border Patrol officers, agents. And of course, they have their own intelligence units. But if we increase that effort and bring in some independent eyes and ears, that may free up some things, some thoughts, some process, some methods. In the end, we're going to control it, and we're going to help people, even the immigrants, believe me. We just have to get to that stage of control, a stage of protecting the immigrant when they come in. Again, I don't believe there's going to be no immigration forever. But again, it's kind of like they went over. Until we get to a certain point, nobody's going to come in unless the court orders it. Again, You see somebody at Starbucks, that's fine. But that's not everybody. You know how many people had to die so that person get a job at Starbucks? How many people are in sex trafficking, narcotics distribution, forced into it? I mean, some of those Tren de Arega people, again, they were part of a criminal gang, were forced into membership. They were conscripted. We need to end that. So again, when I say Spec Ops needs to begin their reconnaissance of the border, there's something down the road that we're going to need to do. But also that they can apply their expertise and help us from their angle and their experience. Again, SOCOM has to find who it is they're going to send. I don't know who it is. They're going to spend, from what I received in the mind, is they're going to send some experts with a lot of experience. Again, when you get something like SOCOM, they could have like an E7 just sitting there in an office, but that person's got like 25 years of experience designing things in far off and distant lands. Again, they could tell you how many MI people to bring in. I mean, maybe not exact, but they can give you a little more information because I can't get out there and do anything. Where to in place things. Again, Border Patrol people have this capability. You look out over the horizon and you know where to look, and so do they. Where the probable spots of issue are going to be. Again, our goal, and again, this is something that may be above your level. I don't know who does all this, but we want every inch of the border covered by electronic surveillance. And we want as technically advanced as we can. And then we also have the drones. We want it so that we want to know they're coming. If we can't get there to stop them, we want the drone to be able to follow them until we get there. So if we have to pick them up an hour later, we know where they are. Now, this system takes a while to build, but we have some things in the stockpile that we can use. Already paid for, just sitting there wasting away. Eventually, all that will tie into artificial intelligence. So we need overlapping security methods. Just because we know they're coming doesn't mean we can get there to get them. But once we know they're coming, again, it's almost like science fiction, right? The flying saucer comes overhead, or the spaceship. The machines are taking over. And then it follows them, maybe even from a position that they can't see it. That's why I say those better drones, because the optics are better also. Satellites, I realize Epic probably has access to some satellites. So the plan has to just keep moving forward, advancing. But we have stuff in the stockpile right now, military hardware, that will do a well enough job for now. But the question is how to protect it. Again, if we start doing outposts, it gets a little crazy. So again, when we think of morale, when we think of bad press, right? But again, that's another way to do it. You just put outposts out, and you rotate people in and out of the outposts. Again, with helicopters, it's a little easier. You could actually let them, just give them 5 days out there and pull them in and rotate them out, even 3 days if you wanted. So again, I designed a plan where we actually deployed by helicopter. When they were having the morale problem in the Border Patrol, I said, if you deploy by helicopter, you can take away some of those posts. And then they live in a less remote location, and they deploy by helicopter. Get a ride to the office. So then you centralize in a more less desolate area, and then they fly out to work, and you already do that to a certain degree. So that's a way to protect our equipment. OPLPs. Again, we do it in the, yeah, well, I guess it's pretty logical. We do it, the multinational force and observer is based upon outposts. But they do, I don't remember what the period of time, they do it like 90 days or a month, I don't remember what it was, and then they rotate. But in fact, military could come in, and you could even use, 11Bs or military intelligence. I don't know who you want to use. Probably 11Bs. 11 Bravos would probably be easier. 12Bs could build the outpost. Yeah, and that concertina wire, and you use like FEMA trailers. Actually, the FEMA trailers are bigger than what they used. But you could. I mean, you could just grab some FEMA trailers. I mean, Trump, you'll have excess FEMA trailers. Trump's talking about getting rid of them. So you can move a FEMA trailer, surround it by a defensive position, and put in some electronic surveillance. And then they start a guard roster 24/7. Or maybe not, I don't know. 24/7 would be best. So you put in like a squad of people into an OPLP. Now, if you like some of those areas, again, I'm seeing it, but it's not all the areas. Some of the areas you can put it up on a high ground, and the OPLP can monitor quite a large section of ground. And that's why I like that one FLIR, I think it was, because it did wide areas. That's what we need. So look at the MFO design, multinational force and observers. I don't know where it is now. I haven't been there since '85, December of '85, if I remember correctly. Sinai, Egypt. And that design might work somewhere else. Again, so if the Palestinian Authority could set up outposts and things like that. Again, that was the idea. That's where we needed to move. Hopefully, you can get there. And the whole goal is that you could have two. Again, hopefully, we can get to that point of coexistence, peaceful coexistence. But you could have two Palestinian Authority and two IDF or whatever it is, or police department or Shin Bet, whatever it is, and they could be on an outpost together. And when it comes time to confront a Palestinian, the IDF doesn't have to walk up. The Palestinian Authority walks up. So they can't play that game that it's just a Jew. Right. Again, union. Right. That's the answer. Again, George Washington's angel or something. Could be me. I don't know. It's kind of weird. So again, I'm painting that picture. I'm opening it up once again because I, for some reason, have the power to do it. I'm already starting it. You just have to do it because it'll succeed because the Lord is with us. Well, because in all the videos, what do you see? You see some Israeli woman, right? Yelling at Palestinian men, and that's a bad optic. I mean, it could be a Palestinian woman. I don't care. And that's where I actually wanted to take them, but we haven't been able to get there because there was actually a modernization of their systems, right? So like in Israel, you have female soldiers. We want the Palestinian Authority to have the same thing. Now I understand Hamas has got females embedded and all that, and again, that's a nasty thing. But we have to be smarter than it. So look at the multinational force and observers, even Russia. Again, when I'm speaking, people come up in the mind. So when we look at Zelensky and Putin, maybe multinational force and observers with outposts. Again, the war has been nasty, so it's a little bit dangerous. A lot of bad blood. Right, so it's not as simple as the MFO mission. But again, when it started, there was a lot of bad blood. Again, they killed Sadat. That's so sad. So sad. Such a good man. Huh? Such a good man. Such a great man. Enough is enough is what you might want to keep uttering. I mean, there might be power in that. Enough is enough. So essentially, I wouldn't recommend the length of service at the OP because I think it was at least a month to 90 days. We don't want to do that. But we can look at 5-day rotations or 7-day rotations at an outpost. Again, you use very simple. You use a trailer. Actually, they used a really small trailer, but I would say something like a FEMA trailer if they're available. Again, if you have to use a smaller trailer, fine too, because they're just going to sleep there for 7 days, and then they come back out of the boonies. But what they're there to do is to protect and monitor the electronic surveillance. Well, the idea is you can monitor the electronic surveillance from a command post, but we're looking at kind of that same mission as the multinational force observers. We want people on scene. We want them to be able to protect the equipment also. We don't want to lose any of that. Next thing you know, the cartels will be using it against us, which could happen anyway. And maybe I'm a genius or something, or psychic clairvoyant. They might be using it against us to detect where we are. So we need counter surveillance operations to find out if they're using high-tech equipment to locate us. Maybe our phones. Maybe they have FLIR. They have a lot of money. So again, you got to be smarter than the things that come against us. Again, this is why I speak out. If you want to know why I speak out in my apartment, this is why I speak out. I go through all this stuff so I can find something, get to something. It's a form of meditation. And it's also due diligence. Right. So metaphysical due diligence. So we need to look into placing those FLIR devices or whatever else you want, whatever GSR system you want. And maybe if you don't have the FLIR devices, you don't have the money, we have systems already in the stockpile somewhere and we can use that. But what we should look into is placing it all the way along the border in intervals and eventually overlap so we can cover the entire border. We can put outposts out there. I recommend a 7-day probably rotation is the best. It's not too short, not too long. Right. All you got to do is get some sort of trailer with bunks in it or whatever it is. Right. Military guys can sleep in bunks. I guess we got military gals, so we have to kind of figure that whole thing out. So again, it might be better it's probably, in the end, government specs something that costs $1 million. So something off the shelf. Again, FEMA has trailers. I don't know if they have any left because we've had a lot of tragedy. Or they may not use it because there was a problem with formaldehyde or something. So I don't know where we are on that. But the idea is you just get a small trailer. You place your stuff. You put you get the engineers out there to prepare the site. It shouldn't take, it's not going to take that long. Again, if you want to install a latrine facility, that's going to take a little while. I guess a septic tank or something like that. But again, it's not, everybody knows it doesn't take that long. You talk about dropping a trailer, water. Again, it's probably advisable, just bottled water. For showers, again, I installed showers on the OPs. They came prefab on the outpost there in Egypt. Just a bag filled with water. But it's just a private space. So again, the trailers. We can rig the trailers up for gravity-fed showers. Because they'll have, if we go, that's why off the shelf might, you buy, off-the-shelf trailers. It might be better they have that type of thing. They have bathrooms, and then it's very easy to modify. Again, don't dilly-dally. Don't play the government game. You know, if you can install, if you can put up, you can put an outpost up in a week. I guarantee it. Right. I mean, gravity-fed showers, trailer. I guess we got to do some solar. The end goal is to have every inch of that border covered. But again, these outposts, you can put them up on a high ground in some areas, and they can cover a large area. And these people will protect our equipment from being damaged or stolen. And during the surge months, like I said, you can rotate a brigade in for a month, or even a battalion if it suffices. Or I guess you do task forces. That's how they do it. But the reason they do task forces, one of the reasons for deployment, right, that way there's the other task forces to cover for the deployed task force, right? But which is essentially like a brigade entity, but not necessarily a brigade. Again, we have to tailor what we deploy for what we do. So if you're just looking for outpost body for the outpost, you can just send infantry and a few augmentees or task force. So you don't have to send everybody. But unless I mean, if you think you're going to increase your military intelligence presence, you could send them. You could send that as part of it. We agree, sir. All I needed was a massage. I never would have had another trouble in my life. Guaranteed. Don't listen to them. They're telling you that I'm just aging or something like that. That was their scam. You're just aging. It was bullshit. Right. That's another thing. They're trying to brainwash their victim. Oh, you're just aging. We're not doing anything to you. Regular. They're sick, man. Very sick people. So look at the multinational force and observer model in the Sinai. That may be what we need. Again, it's even part of what I said before, flying people out. I was saying fly people out daily. But if you're using military people, they'll be fine for a week, maybe even 2 weeks. I don't know what you want to do. But I wouldn't, I definitely wouldn't go past 30 days. It might be easier because you're going to have to resupply. Anyway, I guess you don't. I mean, you could probably put a month's worth of supplies out there. So I guess down there, solar should work pretty good. We'll get you some trailers. Again, it doesn't have to be a state-of-the-art trailer as far as, 7 bedrooms. I mean, GIs can sleep, Marines can sleep, quite a few people to a room. You can put cots in there, but you don't even need that. Again, with Khobar Towers, no furniture. Rolled in the Khobar Towers, rolled their sleeping bag out or something, and that was it. We're in a luxury apartment. Well, apparently the Bedouins didn't want to live there, and they were going to give it to the Bedouins to get them out of the desert. And they're like, nah, we'll stay out here. God may have told them that. It may have been worse if they moved in there. Again, the same thing. Very easy. If you can get a trailer size that you can sling load, then you hit pay dirt. So again, the trailer can't be too big if we're going to do that. Now, just remember, we have the tiny house concepts and all that. Make it out of a mill van, right? So if we can bring a Chinook in or something, and we can sling load it, we'll hit pay dirt. So there's the guidance. You can bring two in. Like you bring, one's the operational center, the mess area. You can bring three in. So look at making outposts that can be manned by military. Now we're building something kind of permanent with that, and maybe necessary. Right. Again, the Mexicans patrol their side of the border with spec ops and other military units. But if you go online, you will see special forces, special operations, military units patrolling the Mexican side, just on the other side of Texas, their border. Again, we're not doing anything Mexico isn't already doing. National security says that we need to have spec ops down there. And again, of course, some of you Border Patrol guys and gals are spec ops. Even if you're just an average, an everyday Border Patrol member, you have capability. So we created an OPLP system. And it's better to have people up there. Again, they don't have to engage anybody, but we have eyes and ears along with our devices. And they could protect it also. You could get away with probably 4 people. But I think, a squad size, at least a small size squad. Again, 4 people would be a team. A team could do it. Which maybe, if you reduce the time they're out there, maybe the team concept would be better. But again, overlapping coverage, if you reduce it to one person and rotating that one person, a little more dangerous. You could also do 12-hour 2-man teams or 2-people teams. That would work. So 12 hours on, 12 hours, or you could do 6 hours. Actually, that wouldn't work, right? 12 hours. If you're going to use 4, but you can use 8, and would go even better. But again, how this all works has to be calculated. But you get trailers, bring in trailers. And if it's sling loadable, you're golden. So you bring in your engineers. It's like building a fire base. The same kind of concept. Like in the 101st, if you could build a fire base or any light unit, because you build a fire base on a mountaintop or something like that, right, or a hilltop, and come in, fly in, clear the ground. Again, some of it's accessible by vehicles too, I'm sure, or you could make it accessible. And you clear it. I think there's some equipment that's I'd have to look. I know the C tractor I think is sling loadable, so you can bring in a C tractor to do any of the levee. I don't even know if the C tractor's around anymore, but some light construction equipment. Thing loaded in if you had to level the ground or do something like that, or help clear something. But again, down there, a lot of the areas are desolate, and there's not that much foliage in certain spots. Probably find spots for it. You put up your fencing and all that. Concertina. Or you might want to do it the other way, put the other fencing like they were using on the border and then just augment it with concertina. You could actually put a fence up and just put concertina at the top. Again, the idea is it's going to be manned 24 or womaned 24/7. Right. And then we have the observation devices. So you might want to actually do a 360 surveillance with just security cameras, and then have your FLIR and all the other stuff. Right. Again, you bring SOCOM people in, they probably design something like that. We should start looking at an outpost system similar to MFO, multinational force observers. And again, the goal is to put some sort of forward, looking radar that can pick up like that one FLIR, the one they recommended. And again, there's probably other systems already out there. I just kind of went with that real quick. That does like 0.8 of a mile. That would actually, if we put it, at the border, that should be sufficient. Then again, we might find we want something that could do much more. And some of that stuff we can put also on vehicles. And there's actually man portable. So again, as far as the goodies list, I'll have to probably reduce it to writing a little bit. Talking about fingerprint identification for the deportation task forces. They could also use that down on the border. Stock on that should go up here pretty soon. We need that. We're behind the power curve. We're paying for bus tickets instead of buying that stuff. Again, regardless of what your plans are, we still need that kind of thing to improve what we're doing. Again, misidentification is a lot less with those type of devices. So we need that. We need to put together these trailers and these outposts. Again, there's probably something that fits the bill that may be in the stockpile, may not be. I don't know. Again, FEMA has stuff. Government agencies have stuff. They don't necessarily need bunks. What I would do is, if you could get something, is to be able to coordinate off into sections, give them a little bit of privacy. Right. Again, you could probably put 2 mill vans together and build something, but then the time period so we want to try to get the prefab if we can, right? So we can get these things rolling on the ground. Again, I spoke about building sally ports and fences and things, and improving on that in Texas, and it's just a matter of doing it. You can put a facility together. You bring your welders in, and they can build anything. Again, sometimes it's cheaper like that, though. But you want it to be done quick. We need to get outposts out there. Again, sitting in a truck is okay, but we want to develop something real, so that we know that every section of that border is taken care of with observation, and then we can work on responding to it. And the observation I'm speaking about is electronic observation. Right. We really went a little further than 0.8. I was hoping to get about like a mile and a half off of it. But I mean, it would suffice in most areas, but placement would be limited. Well, we don't want to, on this particular mission, in some of the spots, we don't want to be right up on the border. We want to sit back and get a wider view from an outpost. But obviously, in some areas, it'll be up on the border. Again, we got to find the ground to do it on. I mean, back in the day, they used to build missile bases. There were Nike missile bases everywhere. I guess it's kind of that theory, right? We used to, in the United States, we used to have missile bases. Just like a small, not like a military base, but there's a Nike missile in there. And, it's probably, off limits, U.S. property, that kind of thing. And I know we have the nuke things in the Midwest. I guess we have some around here. Well, I worked for something. I came in contact with the Nike missile bases somehow. I mean, they were already defunct, but I remember that, maybe when I was working for a municipality as a kid, like a summer job, as far as the maintenance department. But I remember we have to go to the Nike missile base for something, or the old Nike missile base, right? They used to have Nike missile bases throughout the United States as defense feature. So that's about it. So for now, we need to work on an outpost system that includes, forward-looking infrared and all that type of thing, and other types of devices, GSR and drones, because they're always going to go where we're not. Just the given. If it gets, if the tighter it gets, the more likely they're going to move on to another location. We can't monitor everything physically, so we need to put this system together. Again, they'll also go underground. I think I brought it up in 2008. I said they do tunnels in Korea. Get that gear on the border. I sent it to the senators and congressmen. I said, this is not difficult to figure out. We already do this in South Korea. Let's put it on our border. That's actually what I told them. I said, go look in South Korea. What they do there, we need to do on our border. Oh yeah, I mean, it's not that difficult. We just got to do it. Again, we're spending all this money in certain directions, and I'm not against immigration. I'm not against amnesty. Again, I'm not the president, so I don't make policy. And again, if you create the mess that was created, then amnesty might need to go and does need to go by the wayside for a short period of time at least. Well, again, DACA's still out there, so there might be a deal on DACA. I know Trump said he's thinking about it. He's not sure. Thank you much. That's a form of amnesty. Amnesty is still out there, kind of. Well, he just wants I think what he wants to make it is to get it off the books and say, he's not. I don't think he wants to grant them citizenship, but he wants to grant them a protected status that is finalized. So the DACA no longer exists. Just this, we move them off of DACA rolls into a regular. I mean, they've been here, some of these people, like 30 years since they were like 2. Right. So again, get rid of all that excess BS that's kind of hanging around the programs and stuff. And again, some of these people, again, my point of view is this, and I said it before, is all these people are victims of crimes. That's why we're doing it. When they were a child, somebody abused them and caused them to commit a crime and cross that border and stay here illegally. So what we should do is take a report. They need to tell us who did this, if they know. I mean, it may be old data and we don't need to use it, but there should be a file along with their amnesty package that describes a statement of facts. How did this happen? Who did it? Or your mother's a crook. But, we're not going to go arrest their mother necessarily. Thank you, Larry. Right. But, every once in a while we might come up with, well, it's this guy, my uncle, he raped me and yada, yada, yada. And we might get some more information. And we might actually have something chargeable. Thank you. Because again, what happens with some of the liberal people, and and again, conservatives have their stuff that they go over the edge with, but they start looking at it like the uncle's okay, but the uncle's not okay. Right. So there's a lot of things going on that we need to fix. Right. Again, we're never going to get to the point where we fix Central and South America till we fix that, because it's just too easy to do what they're doing. And all that money that was spent on just, I mean, I don't know. I mean, do you have any reports of people taking like bus trips across the United States, like continually? Like spend a week in each city? That's what I do. Got a little hot, I'd go up north. I'm going to get a bus up north. Stay in a shelter up there. I'd go to work though, so No, I don't agree with making pawns of people, and that's what Texas did. That's what Florida did, and you endanger people. I understand your people are endangered, but again, I'm a real law enforcement officer. I'm not going to endanger that person simply to make a point because somebody else is being endangered. Now, we need to deport them. We deport them. That's just a neutral thing, So again, all that it's unaccounted for money also. That needs to be probably investigated. What happened to all that money? So again, if we didn't waste all that money on all that nonsense, again, I designed a system. I said, you need to get them north. Again, it's a movement system. You get them out of Texas, so Texas isn't burdened. So again, I was helping Texas. I was helping Florida, get them to and they said, well, they're flying them into our state. Well, they got to go somewhere, and we got to spread them out. Now, as far as this idea where they're trying to make you liberal, again, I don't put it past them, but the system was still an honest system. You just can't abuse it, and they abused it. Way too many. The numbers were way too high. Now, they were deporting people at a certain point, but he's trying to get elected at that point. If he would have, again, if he would have listened to me and did everything a couple of years earlier, he may have actually been elected again, reelected, or somebody else. He's a Democrat. Well, because you can't just do it overnight and get results. I mean, you just barely got the inflation down right before the election. You could have did that a year earlier if you'd have listened to me, and then people would have appreciated it. Again, so the Trump people should listen to me. Thank you, Larry. Well, again, you're stuck in this thing like cut your nose off to spite your face. It's the biggest problem with the world. Vladimir Putin is walking around noseless. Zelensky's walking around noseless. So again, that's why I say listen to me, because you're going to think in this nonsense political world. Again, Trump's in a fantasy. He's being lulled into a false sense of security with it. So he has to slow down. You have to be careful. You got to get Bondi in there. She's not a confirmed yet, is she? You got to get her in there, and you got to let her do her work. And when it comes to these government employees, you need to let her investigate it. You can't go back. You're going to make government employees millionaires, and then they're going to get their job back. I'm telling you. Some of these government employees are just sitting back knowing what you're doing, and they're just going to sue you. And I'll tell you what, Elon has a better chance in a lawsuit than the federal government does, because they expect the federal government to know better. Like Uncle Elon, we know he's touched in the head. Oh, it's Uncle Elon again. I don't even know why Elon didn't pay me and rescue me from the bullshit. I have no idea. I don't even know if he knows I exist, because I could be totally hidden. I don't know. There's no reason that he didn't try to save me. He uses all my stuff. He essentially became me, except he's a rich me. I mean, who doesn't use my stuff? Democrats are still trying to use my stuff, even though I'm leaning it conservative. You owe me millions of dollars. You better pay me. God made me want to make a point before I leave the planet and destroy stuff big. He's already doing it. I mean, you got to remember, people in the government in their day-to-day work may be having issues, and God's plaguing them until they do the right thing and clear my good name, and then pay me for what they owe me. Correct. Now, it's not me, it's God, believe me. Now, I did curse whatever comes against me. So if you're one of those people who come against me, you have no excuse anyway. I'm not trying to do anything to anybody. You just need to get away from me and pay me my money. So again, the outpost system is something we need to build. I don't think the outpost will be securable without guards at a minimum. Again, I'm not saying these are guards alone. These are observers, and the observers will guard it. We need observers, and they'll monitor the equipment also. Again, your equipment will feed to a bigger system. You know, my banks will be able to sit on it, maybe even on an app, which is what we should do. You sit on an app, and again, you got to make sure it's secure and be able to access those devices once we get it where we need to get it. And not only him, obviously the agent on the street, the officer on the street will be able to access it. And again, you can only access what you're allowed to access. But somebody like Borstar and Bortat, they'll have access to everything. Because the exigence of their mission. And of course the director. The idea is we're not looking for them to detain anybody. We're looking for them to be protected so they don't have to interact. I mean, in a pinch, a Border Patrol agent may need some help. They, help the agent, that kind of thing. But again, the idea is they're U.S. national observers. It's a U.S. national force and observers. So again, I always point that out, how we do these things overseas. And again, Trump's good for explaining the nonsense also. And kind of, again, I got a lot in common with Trump. It's just, nobody ever helped me in life. From what I understand, I was supposed to meet Trump way earlier, but I don't know how I would have did that. I mean, I was in Florida, but again, I don't even know how much they manipulated. There could have been a point where Trump and I were going to run into each other, and again, it just never happened. Well, like I said, for the border, I said use the system in Korea. Again, that's why people like me shouldn't be killed. So, because I can do that, I can say, "Oh, use the system we have in Korea on the border. I'll take care of everything." I don't know what the problem is. We already do it in Korea. We're spending money over there for it. Why aren't we doing it here? So we spend money on multinational force and observers in Egypt. We just bring that idea over here. Find us what trailers will work. It'll be nice. We use military. Military will be glad to rotate in again. National Guard, military. You can even use naval people. I mean, it just depends on what their MOS is. I mean, it doesn't really, because they're just observers. So if somebody's looking, somebody looking to activate a unit or not activate a unit. Let's say you're doing their, what is it? They got to do training. What is it? A weekend, a month, and who knows? You can give somebody a month somewhere. They come in for a month and they man the outposts. A week on, a week off. Again, when the week off is not a week off, it's just a week away from the outpost. Right. Right. Instead of going to NTC, they do this thing, and it's a real world mission. They're more likely to have a mission where they do that than they do what they do in NTC. Right. Well, what we're trying to do, again, the idea of bringing the military police in, a little bit more experience, the interaction is a little more justifiable. I mean, the training of the military police, so you have to do your research now to look up the training of the military police, see who accredits it. And if it's not accredited, find a way to give them a quickie course so you can say, we did this, and put the, make sure you keep your records and put that stuff away. Right. So what's going to happen is, or file it away. You're obviously going to train these people because you can't just bring them in. So you already have some training programs that you use. My goal, for me, from what I'm seeing, is we need to put their head in the game. Because again, you get some people in the military, they're just there for the 3 years for college money, whatever it is. 4 years for college money, whatever it is. So we want their head in the game. And again, when you go to the academies, they put your head in the game. We don't have a lot of time to do it, but we need to give that officer survival, officer safety thing, because that usually puts people's heads in the game. Again, they're going to have to view videos. I don't know if you do that anymore. Maybe they don't do it. I don't know. Is it illegal to do that? Is it lawful to do that, or allowable? Well, you like we heard what they told us to do. They said, put your head down on the desk. As I think we did. We covered our eyes. I can't remember what it was. They played that Marty wire. He was wearing a wire. He went in Baltimore, the detective. So they played that. Maybe it just got real weird in there. They turned the lights off in the room. And like Marty's bleeding out and dying. And you listen to that. They brought we had that guy that was the detective, very, I usually don't say this about man, but a very handsome man. Rode a Harley, I think. Buff, fit, Adonis, kind of guy. And I mean, they blew half his face off, and it was reconstructed. And he did a great officer survival, officer safety course, putting your head in the game. So we need to freak them out a little. This is not your dream assignment. Things can go wrong. It's like Da Nang, 1968. The Mekong Delta. But it can be, right? As evidenced, with that traffic stop up there up north. Again, that's the Cush assignment. He's on a Cush assignment. He did his time down south. He had look here. This is an officer safety officer survival class. But he had his time, at the front. He had his dog. He's doing that assignment. Then he went up north. He had, he's going to, of course, he's going to propose to his girlfriend. He's on Easy Street, and then he got killed. That's a Cush assignment up there. But again, ambushes are coming up. So again, let's go through that type of training also, what to do if you get ambushed. Because again, once the pressure is on, anything can change. Once they feel pressured, once they think that it's all over with, anything can happen. Again, it's a billion-dollar industry or multi-billion-dollar industry at this point. Maybe even a trillion-dollar industry globally. Between human trafficking and narcotics distribution. Remember, one of the goals of human trafficking is narcotics distribution, to create that network, to create that cover of this endless sea of undocumented immigrants. So who's the narcotics? If you have 1,000 undocumented immigrants in a city and somebody's running drugs, it's easy to find them. If you have 20,000 undocumented immigrants, it gets a little more difficult. And if you hire some of them as lookouts and other things, it gets a lot more difficult. Thank you, Larry. So again, sex trafficking of the immigrant is involved also. And conscription. A lot of these people, they're not going to tell you in front of their buddies, but they'll tell you, look, I didn't want to do this. It's the only thing I could do. They were going to kill me. Right. Like I said, there's racketeering organizations right here in Overland Park being run by immigrants and taking advantage of other immigrants. And they sometimes have to pay protection. Sometimes have to do some mule work for them, carry a package somewhere. It doesn't matter who you are. They come up, tell you to do it. You don't do it, you don't get a job. They harass you. They may even kill you. Immigrant survival classes. Figure them out. Put your head in the game. Better go tell us everything because you need protection. That's throughout the United States. But again, what do you think they do? At the top level, they live in nice houses. They donate money to political parties. That's how they survive. Might even give money to Trump. I don't know. Because, in other words, once they get in like that, then they don't get investigated because they're a paying member. Again, Trump may not be part of it, but again, I'm telling you, there's corruption in the Republican Party. Actually, when we get off here, I'm going to go look at some trailers and stuff that might, operational trailers that might work. Again, that's another thing. Now you could purchase an operational trailer that's on wheels and pull it in. Right. Or camper. So there's a lot of things we can use. It's just finding the right price range, right size that works for us. And then, of course, you could put a trailer, a camper in there, and then later improve, right, to something more permanent. But the idea is that you need to prepare the site. And it doesn't take long. Don't let the engineers scam you while they're messing around smoking marijuana or something. Or drinking a beer. Oh, it's taking us a long time. It shouldn't take all that much. You should just you should be able to hustle through it and get it done. And again, prefab is the key. And you want to put a shower in if you can, the gravity fan. But again, there's some of these things you just buy an off-the-shelf trailer. The question is, can we get it out there? So if we can transport it out there, even with a 6x6, just take our time getting it out there, right? Or maybe you might have to go a little bit larger. But the idea is that if we can get one complete package with a shower and a couple of bedrooms. It doesn't have to be big. It could be a rather small trailer because they're not living out there. They're just rotating out there. Again, I don't believe in the 90-day rotation is necessary. I actually recommend against it. We don't go out to the outpost and find everybody dead. we can do it. We can do it really easy with like 7 day. I think even remote areas probably be easy. It would be easy. Again, the VTOLs are nice. They look great, but I want something a little bit. You can use them. They can use others like Chinooks, C-17s if they're still out there. I guess National Guard probably definitely has that in their inventory. But we want something like the Lakota and the Black Hawk would be the biggest. We want something smaller, something fast, carry a team real quick. Right. So again, in some cases, we just want to transport teams around. Again, you can have four smaller helicopters with 4 teams working in an area, and you can combine teams. Come in from different directions, just like the cars, but helicopters. Somebody comes in from the south, somebody comes from the north, somebody comes from the east, somebody comes from the west. Because they run. Again, if we have our forward-looking infrared and all the other stuff, we're going to see things. Thermal imaging, wherever it is you think you want to use. So technology will help us. But I do think we need to begin an outpost system. Again, Trump can start a rotation. Whatever you do, don't let them destroy the outposts. I guess if you don't man it, you might have to take the equipment away, I guess. Because I'm just saying, if you do the wrong thing, Democrats are going to take over in 4 years. And maybe undo it. Now, the Democrats may say, hey, this worked, let's keep it going. Right. So again, that's maybe what the Democrats have to do to win an election. Yeah, right. Again, I believed, and Kamala Harris is not really a bad person compared to, I think, everybody else. That's why she didn't win. And again, it has nothing to do with Trump, and just as far as the other Democrats that have been put up. I think we could have got, she's got some law enforcement background. I think we would have moved on the immigrants. We would have moved on some of this. There's no doubt. Right. But like I said to Trump, make sure your people aren't corrupt. Make sure your people aren't there hunting me down and killing me or paying somebody to do it. Because that's what happened. Because what is, people pay them and then they pay the other people. There's a lot of people out there that aren't Democrat or Republican. Lois Lerner was one of them. She's not Democrat. Right? She's not Republican. She's just an opportunist. There's a bunch of those people. Well, Trump's getting up in years. If he listens to me, he'll be famous. Right? If you listen to them, it'll be the same bullshit. In 2 years, we'll be mired down and bogged down in bullshit. So again, if Pine Bondi tells you it's better not to do something, again, I'm not talking about the pardons. I'm way past that. I'm not here to play that game. Right. But if she tells you not to pursue something with an employee, don't do it. That can get you in a lot of trouble later. Again, you don't want to pay him $1 million. I mean, Elon's budget will blow up with what he's got to pay, what we're going to have to pay the employees if you do the wrong thing. Elon saves us $2 trillion, and then we find out 2-3 years down the road, you got to spend $3 trillion in fees, fines, restitution. Right. The budget is never, like if you trim the budget, that's not the final story. You got to wait up to like 10 years to see the effects. So when it comes to military aviation, I don't believe a chartered aircraft is that cheap compared to the military aircraft. I think the figures are something else. But even if it is, we have to fly those birds to test them to make sure they stay operational. The pilots have to get time in the air to stay qualified. So sometimes they just fly from one airport back to the other airport. From airport to airport. Or something. I've been in a mine. It came up last night that they go up in the air and they just fly a circumventus route and come back down and land. So when we see that going on, those are the people we want to use for these trips. Right. Now, when I was at Federal Bureau of Prisons, We did rent a Lear jet a couple times, or something like a Lear. It's aren't expensive. I can't believe the tickets are that low. I think it cost us like over $4,000 for just one flight to Missouri in a small jet. Or maybe that's what they're looking at. I don't know. Right. So again, this is the key in using the military and doing this. The budget's already there. The money's already being, a lot of that money's already being spent. Then we do rotations at NTC that costs a lot of money. Put the vehicles on a railhead or whatever it is. That can be converted. Like I said, the chances of a real world mission, again, especially where we're moving away from war. So if we can. So the chance of actually doing a full scale battle combat scenario that you do at NTC is a lot less likely than being an observer on a border or doing some fortification work on the border. That's more real world. You know, these type of things, these type of patrols are going on in Africa, or have been going on in Africa, the Middle East, Southwest Asia, and other places, Korea. 100%. So all we're doing is taking the money we're already spending. Like, we have to recreate something. We have to make a kind of real world mission and then play a war game. We don't have to do that now. We can just take them down the border, and you got real people on the other side. You got the cartel armed. It's like a practical exercise. Like the real deal. Not just trying to play a war game. Again, at a certain point, it might get. The idea is, if we ever plan to go into Mexico, we need to have our fortifications and our observation system up. So we need to get the spec op down there and start working the border and figuring out what we need to do. I can only tell you so much from here. So that border needs to be secure before we ever think of going into Mexico. I mean secure. There's going to be retribution. And it's the same thing as Ukraine and Russia. They'll do that here. The cartel will come up here and kill some people. But again, if we do it right, psychologically, they might not. But we don't know their reaction. These are people that use drugs, sell people, kill people. No, yeah, I know the CIA does that, but talking about the cartels this time. Like, I was in the government, I used to deal with mafia, says I'm just another government and all this. I'm like, yeah, right. But you know, when it all the shit hit the fan, I'm like, I realize what the mafia is saying now. These people are shit. They're just not, you're not another government mafia, but the government is another mafia. That's really what they meant. The government's just another mafia. The mafia is not another government, because that's what they used to call themselves, just another government. But what really was going on is that the government was another mafia. You know, Comey's like John Gotti. Right. Tells them to take out more, he means kill more. You want them dead, like Luna. We want them disappeared like Bob Levinson, that is. Well, you know, I really don't care what's her name? What's that one? Tulsi. Tulsi's a plant. If you don't know that joke, Tulsi is a plant in Indian culture, in Vedic religions. And a plant that's divine, represented. And we even call it holy basil. So that's funny, holy basil, that ties in with Russia, right? I think Saint Basil is trying to send a message to all of you. He wants it over. And he says, I'm just a messenger. The big man, big woman, whatever you think God is, wants it over. Thank you, Larry. I don't care who Tulsi is. I don't care what anybody is, actually. I already explained. Again, this is the funny thing with Hegseth and what he said. This ties into that. I told you, Hegseth, you can't say it as a combat veteran. You can't say what you said. You're going to be ruled for it. So he had something he had to go through. Duckworth was part of it. She was ruling him. Elizabeth Warren, she's part of it. She was ruling him. I don't care about Tulsi as long as she gets in there and she performs and she doesn't do what they say she's going to do, to harm people. We need not focus. Again, there's nothing. Again, it's not nothing new to get rid of DEI. Again, why is it called DEI? Because we got rid of affirmative action. So they can't call it affirmative action because I think we did some. I think they actually legislated that away, if I'm not mistaken. So again, there's nothing wrong with that, but we have to realize that discrimination does exist. And meritocracy doesn't exist. President Trump could say meritocracy all day. It doesn't exist. It's that corrupt. And you have to look around yourself because you're not necessarily meritocracy either. So again, we still have to realize that we have a mission. And the mission says people need to not be discriminated against. I don't know where you're going to end up. The courts is going to have a say in this because if you try to get rid of the transgenders again, they're going to fight that, and this time they have an argument. Didn't have an argument last time. Well, on again, off again. It makes it women whimsy. And again, you can't say, well, that's the Democrats. Well, Democrats could be in next year. So the court says, exactly, this is our point. Again, this is probably coming from the court. Also, again, I could be part of that court inside, and probably am. So it's on again, off again. So I don't know what to tell you. I believe if we were ever to get into a world war scenario or something, that heavy, like let's say we were Ukraine fighting the Russians fighting Ukraine, and they were trans, there could be a forced detransition. Great, sir. And that, based upon the court cases I've seen, again, they might be changing. I haven't looked recently. It says forced detransition could cause, again, it was in relation to corrections and all that type of thing, could cause psychological damage to include suicide. And again, you're out there with a weapon, you're in wartime, forced detransition. It's just like being a diabetic. I'm not trying to like, to me, it has nothing to do with being trans. And maybe to Trump or the other people, I don't know where their minds are. To me, the idea is, in the military, we have disqualifying conditions. Gender dysphoria based upon the danger of suicide, depression, and other things under certain conditions makes it a disqualifying condition. Because some of these other conditions are disqualifying because of that scenario. That if we ever get into combat, it can go real bad, where you're isolated and you can't get to what you need to get to stay well. Again, it got to a certain point in my life, I left government because I couldn't stay. I mean, criminals took over the government, and that's just it. And they're trying to make people sick and unwell. Again, they never stopped, but which makes it even worse. Well, a lot of people were told as long as he leaves the government, we won't, we'll let him go on. But it was a lie. Again, people were paying to kill me. So they're like, yeah, I'm not going to stop the gravy train. He's a cash cow. Keep it going. So again, even other things. So Pam Bondi needs to get in there. And you need to listen to her. Well, because they're setting you up for at the most 2 years for their retakeover and for them to get you and get your people that work for you. Again, I don't think Trump understands the court's finding. I don't think he understands it. The Democrats overplayed it. Like, oh my God, he gets to do anything. He doesn't get to do anything. It's like a trap. There are limitations. And again, Nixon didn't get convicted, but his people got convicted. So the inner circle of Trump has to worry about what's going to happen if a case comes up out of it, because they're not protected. There is no, in the military, or in the government, actually military too, there is no excuse that your boss told you to do something. It doesn't exist when you're looking for a defense. Each person is responsible for their actions. And that's coming from the court. So even if Trump is protected, you're not protected. Like Vivek and Elon, kind of showed their ignorance of government. Well, there's no, checks and balances in the executive branch. I mean, you just do what the boss says. No, that's not the way it works. They spend it's professional responsibility. They spend, blocks of instruction and actually retrain you in it. And you have to sign papers that you're not to carry out unlawful orders. So even though the president is protected from crime, the underling may not be. But again, there is a protection, at least in federal law enforcement, in committing crimes. Again, I think it's overplayed, but right. Well, again, you're not protected from crime for crime's sake. Now, they articulate it a different way, but again, that's a good way of saying it, crime for crime's sake. Again, you may not consider it a crime, but if it's a crime and you're engaging in crime for crime's sake, then you're actually not covered. But again, they're articulated as something else. Well, again, if you use the system and if you don't get rid of it, then if they take back over, make you a lame duck in 2 years, they'll use the system again. So you have to be careful that they don't lead you down that road so they can get you. Because the absence of loud lawsuits, I'm concerned that they're actually setting you up. That's a psychological ploy. Like you feel like you're the most powerful person in the world. And to a certain degree, you have a lot of power, but you have to be careful of 2 years from now, just like before. Yeah, I couldn't believe what country is that, Denmark or whatever it is. Just that Greenland gets to decide their future. That's an easy one. I mean, look at how he won that election. All you have to do is get elected. The United States has to be elected as the government of, the superior government of Greenland, and they'll put you in, if that's how they're going to do it. And I wouldn't recommend being dishonest, not at all. Well, again, if he promises them, if he promises the right people, this is how he did it. He promises the bosses the right stuff, it'll happen. There's bosses in Greenland, just like everywhere else in the world. If you promise those bosses and you look like you're going to deliver, and you probably should start delivering now, it'll happen. I never thought it was going to happen. And again, it isn't Trump that did it. And again, she's just one person. They might impeach her and throw her in jail for saying it. But essentially, if all it has to be is Greenland decides, I don't know when it would happen, but you could work that. That's workable. That was a big statement. When I read that, I'm like, oh my God, it's doable. And that's when the people in Greenland, the politicians in Greenland, freaked out because they know it's doable. Again, in Denmark, because I think it's Denmark is where it's. Well, because they don't have the capability we have to sway people, so they know it's possible. And if we're an honest country and we treat them honestly, you may have to promise them statehood and everything else. I don't know how big Greenland is. I'd have to look. Is it bigger than Texas? But you would have to promise them statehood. They're not going to, and then Puerto Rico would. Well, see, Puerto Rico's a funny country because some of them don't want statehood. Again, if you're corrupt in Greenland, you don't want, or corrupt in Puerto Rico, you don't want statehood because then you might be increased enforcement. Not to say everybody in Puerto Rico is corrupt. There are forces that fight it. So again, when they bring up Puerto Rico, it's much more convoluted. Right? There's people that actually in Puerto Rico that are fighting statehood. They like being a territory. They don't want it. They feel like a state would demean them. They don't want to be part of it. They want to stay part of Puerto Rico. Kind of, tradition. And I think I did recommend years ago that we should move forward. I think the last Trump administration said, let's look at Puerto Rico becoming a state. Let's look at, all the territories moving to statehood. Let's get rid of this bullshit. Right. We could end up with, 53, 54 stars on the flag. Maybe 54, right? Thanks, Larry. I mean, there's nothing to say that, the Senate and the House, create statehood all at once for Greenland, Puerto Rico, Guam, I guess. What is Guam? Guam's a territory, right? Just get it all over with. Maybe the Marshall Islands. Yeah, the Marshall Islands are like Rhode Island, really small, like inconsequential when it comes to representation. Anyway, again, what are we actually speaking about? The numbers of people and representation. Guam, we're not speaking about much. Puerto Rico has a sizable population, but I mean, why not? Just end it. No more territories. So again, their argument against Greenland accepting like a territory status, I don't think they should accept it. Again, if I'm Greenland, I'm not going to become a territory. You're going to make me a state, or you can just go away. I want to at least be a state with congressmen and senators. I think that's all it would take, guaranteeing them statehood. I was against the territory game, and they're right, it's a game. But again, Puerto Rico is not, we're not oppressing Puerto Rico away from statehood. I don't think, a lot of Puerto Rican people just want to be a territory. They don't approve of statehood. Again, Virgin Islands was another place. Make it a state. No problem. I mean, people that have property on Virgin Islands, they'd be happy for it to be a state. They don't have a problem with it. And some of those people are wealthy. Right. We'd be there. I think we're looking at 54 states at least, maybe 55. Nothing wrong with it. I think once it's done, everybody that's a territory would be happy. Well, we're a state now. Got 2 senators. We'd have to mess up the Senate and the House, wouldn't it? I don't play politics with it. Just get it over with. If you can get Greenland, just make everybody a state. You have 110 senators. You have to change furniture. You have to change furniture, don't you, at that point? Or to break down a wall. Got to find some more, off space. You could build down, You ever think about that? There's always an office space issue. I mean, built down enough. You got the train station and everything else. You probably put some office space down there. The rookies have to have, but you have to change. You have to test for radon. The rookies get office space underground. Actually, that's actually a safer space. Right. You build another 2 floors downward and make office space. Again, I won't tell them about the other stuff. It's limited. There's already a bunch of shit down there. Everybody knows there's tunnels in D.C. and everything. I think they just talked about it recently. Make some office space down there for the new 10 senators. And I don't know how many Congress people. You see, there's great things we can do and be unselfish and really enhance what the United States is. Again, I give the credit to Donald Trump thinking about Greenland. But, to do it, I think you need to promise them statehood. And they're going to want some other representations. And again, it would be great for Greenland as long as we gave them an honest deal. I mean, just getting Greenland, I'd give them anything they need. And again, we don't want to get to the point where we're like we just did with the budget. We spend so much money on one thing, we don't have enough money for something else. Right. Your Uncle Elon may poo-poo it. We don't have the money. Okay, so they make it personal. He was angry. Trump's saying it's just personal, but he was angry and he shot that. And I don't know. He tells you he's crazy. Elon will tell you he's crazy if you listen to him. I say I'm tortured. Elon admits to being crazy. Now, a lot of what he says is true. See, I don't even understand why I was put out like this. I really don't understand it. And then they tried to make me a pedophile and all that shit. I investigated all of it. I tried to fight it by showing them who I was, that I wasn't going to hurt anybody. And again, I was having severe issues with what they were doing to my life. But again, I was in a prison war camp type scenario. I did great. I mean, other people are dead. They committed suicide. Killed other people even, some. And then killed themselves. This is what your government's been up to. It's Project Artichoke, but worse. 100%. Never ended. They just continually did it. They get off on it. Manipulating people and altering them and harming them. What they did is they indoctrinated people in local police departments and state police departments to be part of it. So they get off on the same thing together, and then they go off and have an orgy. This is real. As funny as it is, as weird as it is, it's real. They were killing Border Patrol people. I pointed out that one out. They get paid. Get rid of the person that they know that might arrest somebody. And again, some of it's bullshit. I think all of it's actually bullshit. Because the assessment of who they keep and who they get rid of is like bullshit. I mean, they keep some pretty ratty people, and you need ratty people to commit crimes. But, the idea where they're trustable is zero. In fact, they'll make trouble just to elevate themselves. So they'll destroy the system that brought them up and make trouble for it just to come and rescue the system. But the thing where Elon is a spirit and he's from somewhere else, I think that's real. So he was a spiritual being and he ended up here, as far as being a humanist and loving people, I don't see that. I don't see that at all. He's a billionaire and people will say it because he's a billionaire. He seems to be selfish. He seems to serve self more than anything else. Again, this is just reality. I think Trump is more giving than Elon. I think Elon is trying to paint himself like Trump, but I don't think it's possible. Again, he could have an epiphany and change. Trump's just, Trump's Trump against Donald being Donald. That part of that's true. With Donald Trump, it's just a matter of educating him in a certain direction. We all need to learn. I learn things every day. Like I said, I'm going to go back there and I'm going to research something. I know Trump does that. He does that also. So I'm going to go back and research the trailers and all the equipment that we might want to put on the outpost and just educate myself in that direction. So once Trump is intelligently, explains something, he does shit. He would shit. That's why I said all those Christians piss me off because they taught him wrong. Because most people that are in church are actually neophytes. They have no clue other than what the preacher tells them. And I wouldn't without God. I just have a close connection to God, and God explained the scriptures. But again, why would God do that? So I could come and explain them to you, right? and you all killed me. So you have a price to pay for that. You can't say you're ignorant of what I would have instructed you if you were part of what kept my instruction away. Again, I'm pro-life, but there's only so many ways to actually move pro-life. Here's an example, and I know it's kind of weird. So you're pro-life, and you decide that you're going to get rid of Roe versus Wade, and you're going to do it with a law versus praying it away. Again, there could be an argument that you did both. I don't know. Again, I'm not impressed with any of the Christians I've seen. I mean, liberal, conservative, they both, have an axe to grind, and they keep grinding that axe in somebody else's head. Literally, and figuratively. That could have caused October 7th, or been part of what caused October 7th. That's how the planet actually is. That's why Rabbi Yeshua ben David and other rabbis came and told you how to do things. The best way to do it. So you don't cause that. And you wait on the Lord. You all don't wait on the Lord. And you never probably have in your life. Even if you had an illusion of waiting on the Lord. Well, yeah, once I ordered a pizza and it took twice as long to get here. I waited on the Lord. That's their idea of waiting on the Lord. So I don't really know Mike Banks, but I've got a connection somewhat there, and he's part of what we're doing. And the whole idea is like, and he's not against. Mike Banks isn't against fixing Mexico, fixing Honduras, fixing Guatemala, so that they have an actual country. Again, but one of the first steps is making it not so easy to just leave. And again, when they get up here, it's a crapshoot. Like it does, what's her name? And you run into it. The thing is, in Trump, see, you got to explain it to Trump. In law enforcement, we run into the bishop all the time. I don't remember her name. We run into the bishop all the time. They're everywhere. That mentality is everywhere. Right. But we as law enforcement know the truth. That's a crapshoot. She can show you all the people at Starbucks working there, or work in the fields. But she needs to realize that because that exists, because that's out of control. And again, we've made inroads and efforts, and they did work the program where if you're an agricultural worker, we need you. You just get legalized somehow. Again, if you're an agricultural worker today and you're not documented somehow, then you messed up. Because there's programs. Even Homan knows there's programs, and even Homan helped with those programs. But we run in, in the Marshal Service, it doesn't matter. You run into good people. When you're on a fugitive, just went on my couple fugitive operations, say, hey, more, go around the back of the house. You're the back of the house, dude. I go around the back of the house, and then here comes this lady, black woman, elderly black woman. She starts to tell me everything. And again, it may be just me because it may be a voice. I guess maybe it's a voice. It may be God. Huh? God says, tell that guy over there. People just tell me stuff, man. I generally don't ask questions. I just listen. But again, there are people that are dead. Again, the Border Patrol knows. So Mike Banks can we can point the finger at him and say, he's a bad man. Homan's a bad man. But what we know is if we reduce this, we're going to save lives. There's going to be less children harmed, less people that are put in bondage in whatever way they're put in bondage, less racketeering and organized crime going on in the United States in these immigrant communities oppressing their people. Less people living in fear, less Americans murdered, raped, pillaged, plundered. And then real healing can take place in these other nations. Well, part of it also isn't just them. They don't have a lot of way in the world. So they're sitting there in the middle of a village in Guatemala, El Salvador, Mexico, or even in a city. And they're sitting there, and some guy up here runs a big business. and he wants an extra Lamborghini or another property, or they're going to buy a house. Here's another one. This is why they're into contracting so much. This is really it, regardless of maybe they're good house builders or whatever. All of you want your house cheaper. They're sitting in a village. You just willed them up here, because the only way for you to get what you want is for them to come up here and work as a contractor or work in somebody's business. So you just used your will to cause illegal immigration, but yet you're going to come against it and vote against it. It's insane. That's actually what's happening. I bring up all the time, the conservatives are the ones that are bringing them up here, a lot of them, because they want them to work in their businesses. Even Trump had, he's scratching his head trying to get out of bankruptcy. I hope I get out. In his will, if he moved his will, and he probably did. He brought immigrants up here to work in his places, and all of a sudden he's out of bankruptcy because he doesn't have to pay them as much, or to build something, or whatever it is. Again, this is the reality that we need to understand. But again, if we apply this physical system in a well manner, we will reduce the numbers up here. We'll be able to get control of these communities. We'll be able to identify narcotics distribution better, because instead of having 10,000 immigrants, we have maybe 2,000 immigrants or 5,000 immigrants. Less to pick, because they do that. We obviously these narcotics. Again, I'm not telling you that we will be narcotics free once we do this, but we'll get a better control on what's going on from the border. Again, that's the fentanyl and everything else. Well, chemists are everywhere. They'll come up with something else. But again, we'll deal with it when we deal with it. So we'll be able to build up those communities in earnest. I think we'll be able to make deals with Mexico. I think Trump. She knows Trump's playing her, so she's playing Trump. That's all it is. Again, the idea of the plane not being accepted was, I believe, an accident, some sort of administrative glitch. Maybe not. Maybe she's playing us. Mr. Trump, you gotta be nicer to Mrs. President of Mexico, or she won't take your plane. Put Egg Foo Young on your face. Right. Thank you, Larry. I don't know. It could have just still been an administrative glitch, which you never know. And when saber rattling, because Trump does it. Right. So Trump's trying to set the stage for the upper hand if he can. But we're getting to the point, I think, that we're missing messaging and opportunity to articulate things and deal with things a little sooner than later. I believe we need to get to Putin, and we need to start that. He's ready to go. Zelensky's already articulated he's ready to go. Well, Putin, you have to realize what Putin's telegraphing. Okay, so Putin says if President Trump, it's not necessarily kiss the ring. I mean, part of it is that he wants up, and he believes Trump will give him up. But he's saying if President Trump had won the election in 2020, this wouldn't have happened, or most likely wouldn't have happened. Which means that can mean a lot of different things, and I'm not going to get into that. I'll get into that later, maybe. But what's he saying? Well, Trump's president, right? It can go away now. Big statement analysis. So he's trying to get you to move. And I don't know, God could be blinding for Trump and not letting them see it on what they should do. But we need to get everybody over there, and we need to get, because Koreans right now are streaming towards Russia. And I said, I understand that. Before I wouldn't have actually been as understanding, but I said, this is the moment. Vladimir Putin says, I want to go to peace. I think the CIA did it. I think the CIA moved Ukraine because they didn't want it to go to peace. They wanted to try to take out Putin. Again, these people are stuck in that mode. If I was them, I'd have killed someone already. And of course, they kill people. So you see, but I'm not them, and they're touched in the head. So Putin has no reason to do anything until it starts in earnest. And he doesn't have a requirement, actually. If you try to press it, you might actually screw up our country. Because when he said, I don't know if he was honest or not, but you have to try to, what do they call that? Play his bluff. If he's bluffing, he may not have been bluffing. But we don't have the information to say he was bluffing. So that's when Ukraine went in, and he's never said anything about, negotiations until now. Well, because he's looking for that not to happen. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Yeah, it's a KGB thing. I don't know if it is, but it kind of could be. No, he burned the negotiations. When he asked for negotiations and said, we're going to move in negotiations, whatever he said, it was something along those lines, they invaded Russia proper. No good deed goes unpunished. So there's no reason for him to do anything until he sees something happen. Well, as a KGBer, Zelensky can say he wants peace all day, and it could just be a psyop to confuse the Russians, to get them to lull them sense of security. Actually, I think they advanced recently. Again, Zelensky says he wants peace, and then he advanced. But of course, Russia's trying to kill all of them, and if they could, they would. They do not want a single one of those people escaping Russia. But again, now he says he wants peace, so it's kind of a godsend for those people. No, if Putin could do it, and I guess he could do it, he's not going to do it yet, but he could do it. Putin can start pushing buttons, and it'd be major, but every one of those people in Russia from the Ukraine could be dead, with just a small handful escaping. But he's not going to do it. He don't want to do it for whatever reason. Now, if Putin really wanted them dead and out of Russia, he could do it. I'm telling you. But it would just, I don't know if he'd have an arsenal left afterwards, or how much arsenal. So again, he has to weigh all of that in his decision making. So, but if he does that, he could end up failing the thing. But he could kill every one of those people that are in Russia right now. Right. And he has serious stuff that we probably would say is a violation of human rights and international law if he used it. I mean, we've used it. You'd suffocate him. You could suffocate every last one of them, just about. Right. Or worse. So again, let's move forward before we get to that. Again, he's bringing in artillery. Might be planning it. I mean, he showed whatever restraint. I think it might be because he just doesn't want to go over a certain line as far as wasting munitions or even using something that could be deemed a violation of international law. But he could definitely, if he wanted to, kill every one of those people. And he might be setting that up. So again, I think it's crucial for us to begin moving. And again, if you start the process, then you get it up. Remember I told you there's a drawdown when you take over the government? Well, then start the peace process and you'll go up. You don't even know how up you're going to go because you can't see what you're not seeing. Again, I've already seen Trump make a couple moves that it's part of the setup, like they're setting him up. Now, I know he put people on paid leave, so that's a good sign that he's trying to wait to figure this thing out. And I know you have attorneys in the Justice Department already. Right. Let's get Pam Bondi in there, and maybe she can mind it and see into it. Again, it's better to let something go than have to pay employees millions of dollars and then they come back and get their job anyway. Well, they do have employment rights. You can get rid of DEI, but they have employment rights. So you may have to actually give them a job if they wanted to stay over hiring somebody new. The idea of what Elon used, and again, We don't get enriched in the government generally. I mean, there's corrupt people that get enriched. I already pointed out there's some very wealthy people in government, and they just get it from corruption. Again, private sector might get it from corruption. I don't know. So I'm just going to keep telling you, move forward on that. And Kellogg could be there, but we need to see it. The world needs to see it. It needs to go forward. Because that helps move world peace. So you're not only moving peace between Russia and Ukraine, or ceasefire, whatever it is, you're moving world peace forward. You don't want to be the last person fighting a war. So you try to move towards peace. But everybody else is, so again, we have a lot of different flare-ups. Again, make religious ceremony part of it daily. At least a half hour of religious ceremony. Probably that's a good time period to use before the negotiation day. Not just an invocation. You want to have music, again, things like, mercy of peace, the mercy of peace, or that kind of thing. So I don't know. We don't know any of it. We don't know how far any of them are willing to go. Well, we need the process visible. Because number one, we can bless it and heal it easier. Right? There are people out there who would bless it and heal it. Two, again, statement analysis, other things being seen. And that could, messaging can be sent. Again, it's not only me. Well, what has to happen if Vladimir Putin says, yes, we'll stop everything, and Zelensky says, yes, we'll stop everything, you need to stop everything. You can't be moving and readjusting your units unless you're pulling them back. Right. There needs to be good faith. So I guess that's what I'm trying to say. We need to start good faith somewhere and then build off of that. But because there's power in it. Just merely saying something may not get us there. So to get to point B, we got to get to point A first. And when we get to point A, then it empowers point B. All right, I probably spoke long enough. Stay peaceful.